Let's look at one more verse this morning. Let's look down at verse 9. You've heard this verse quoted before, but here it is. In his heart a man plans his course, but the Lord determines his steps. Your life is ultimately under God's control. Do you plan your course? Many of y'all may have plans for this coming week, what you're going to do this week. But ultimately, God is the one that determines that course. Ultimately, God is the one that allows you to carry out the plans you make. See, the thing about this is, with all the plans you make, you don't know. You may end up in a hospital this next week. You may be flat on your back in bed next week. You don't know what's going to happen to you. God ultimately is in control. The only reason any of us can even be here this morning is because God has allowed us to be here. The only reason we can even draw air into our lungs is because God has allowed us to do this. He is the one in ultimate control. So we can't go away from here today, with this facade of thinking, you know what, I'm in control. I've got it all figured out. I know what I'm going to do, because only we can do those things if God allows it to happen in our life. Now, for me, that's encouraging and that's comforting, because I know that if God's got everything in control, then I know that I can hang on to His promise that He can work everything out for our good. Because if man's in control, then I'm scared of bin Laden. I'm scared of Saddam Hussein. But if God's in control, I have nothing to fear from man. I have nothing to fear from anyone else. All I need to do is to look to God. Now this morning, as I watched that, I told you all about those people that were caught in that current. You know what? Those people could never get to the shore because of one major thing. Because they were swimming against the current. Listen to this now. If they would have turned and swam with the current towards the side, do you know what would have happened? They would have made it to shore. But they were fighting against the current. Finally, the people went to the bridge. They got across the bridge. They got a rope going all the way across the bridge, and they caught the people. But you know what I saw when I watched that? I realized this. That there are many people today that are being swept away by the current of this world. And they're fighting against it with all they've got, and they're losing their hope. Hey, listen, this morning, where do we find that hope? This morning, where do we find that rescue? I'm not asking you this morning about being saved. I'm asking you this morning about living out what God has designed for you to live. How do you get to that point? How do you get your life back under control? You've got to turn your life totally back over to God. When we talk about renewal, that's what it's all about. You see, what happens in your life that causes lasting change? It's whenever you find your purpose in life and you live it out every single day of your life. Would you please stand this morning for the invitation? This morning, if you feel like your life's being swept away, right now at the invitation, why don't you cry out to God? Call out to God. I mean, I'll tell you one thing. These people, as they were being swept away by the current, they were crying out to everybody they saw on the side, and they were screaming out for help. They were waving their hands, trying to get help any way they could. That's the way we should cry out to God also. Many times, because of our pride, because of our ego, we won't cry out to God, and life continues to sweep us away. Why don't you cry out to Him today? See, that's where the rescue line is. But this morning also, if you're not saved, if you are lost this morning, then the salvation is found in Jesus Christ. The only one that's going to be able to pull you up out of where you are is Jesus Christ. Not the preacher, not the church, or anything else. It's only Jesus. You've got to turn to Him. You know what? It comes down to this. All of us need to turn to Jesus this morning. Every single one of us. Would you do that this morning? The invitation's open. You come down and pray at these altars. You feel led to join this church, you come down this morning. Whatever God's laid on your heart, you respond to Him this morning.